podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello, ladies and gents. Hope you are all doing well. Just before we go into this episode, the second episode of the Millwall Roundtable, just wanted to mention a couple of points. So the first one is we've just reached over 10,000 views of the shows that have gone out on Chat with Chaps, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. So a massive thank you to each and every single one of you that has listened to any of the content so far. So a massive thank you. Second of all, the Millwall Roundtable is a show where almost anyone can come on to a degree and talk a bit about their opinion on Millwall. And that's the whole concept of it. We're trying to promote, trying to get as many Millwall fans involved as possible. So if you're a friend of the show and you want to come on, by all means, do drop me a line. And then the last point, and probably the most important one, speaking of friends of the show, Big E, a very big character, really good friend of the show. We just want to wish you all the very best in your recovery, mate. We're thinking of you here and hope you're doing well and hope this puts a little smile on your face.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you back at the den, Big E, mate, and keep going, be strong, and look forward to having a beer with you when we see you. All the best, mate.
All the best. There's not many stronger. And without further ado, we'll get right into the show. Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to the next instalment of a new series in the Chat with Chaps podcast called The Roundtable, where we bring on guests, Millwall fans, to come and talk about their opinions on all of the hot topics going on in and around the den at the moment. And today I'm joined by two friends, one familiar face that I'm sure many of you will know, and one brand new one. I can't wait to start talking to both of them. So without further ado, let's get straight into the introductions. Let's start with yourself. Good friend of mine, Mr. Joe Zampa. How you doing, mate?
I'm very good, Chris. I'm good. How are you doing, mate? A bit early for us to do the record. As you can probably tell from the daylight there. It's not often we do it this early in the morning, but yeah, it's good to sort of do it. And I'm quite excited about our new guests that we're going to have on this show as well. So I'll let you do the intros on that one.
Me too, mate. I'm not going to lie. He's more exciting than you and brings the average age down of the podcast quite considerably. So
a couple of years.
Just a couple. George, welcome to the show, mate. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Bit worse for wear this morning. Feeling a little bit rough. It wasn't easy getting out of bed, but we're here, and I'm happy to be here.
Can I ask a question, George? How many pints did you drink last night?
I had 7 pints last night, so I started on the bottles of Corona. You've got to have a lime. Of course, you've got to have a lime in a bottle of Corona, don't you? And then I went from there, and then the next pub I went in had Asahi on tap, and I was like, "That's a bit of me. That's a bit of me." A couple of Jaeger bombs, and I was sweet after that. I was away.
But bear in mind, listeners, I think George told us off there. He got home about sort of 4 or 5 in the morning, and we're recording this at about 11 in the morning. So fair play to him, mate. If it was me, I think I'd be dead for 24 hours. You wouldn't see me, but he's a trooper.
Shows my age, maybe. Shows my age.
It certainly does, mate. But one thing that age does not matter is when you're a Millwall fan and you're producing quality content like you are on TikTok. We're delighted to have you on the show, George. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind, mate.
Well, so obviously you can find me on TikTok at George C.9. Some would say I'm an influencer. I personally wouldn't label myself as that. Not yet, anyways. But yeah, I create content on TikTok or on Millwall and other championship and football related stuff. And it's good. The channel's growing. And I'm having fun with it along the way. And I think it's a fantastic platform to get your personality and your opinions out there. So really enjoying and you know, again, it's really it's a pleasure to come on the podcast today and talk to you boys who have tried and tested of Millwall podcast these days. So it's great to come on and to share this platform with you.
Well, I don't know about tried and tested. I think probably on this podcast we've got Joe's going to kill me for this. We've got the future in you, we've got the present in me, and we've got the past in Joe. Oh, I'm only joking, mate. Right, let's get on with some of the questions. So
we're going to change this week. Get a new one.
I mean, listen, I've got a lot more grey hair than you have.
Oh, and, this is yeah.
You know, so your turn to take the piss out of me. Anyway, topics we're going to cover today, listeners. We're going to talk about Hutchie being back. I think I'm not going to lie. I was hoping when we planned this show, we'd have a little bit more transfer news to talk about, but we don't. So we'll talk about the one that we have, which is Hutchie. We're going to talk a bit about the general sentiment of the transfer business so far. Keen to get both Joe and George's opinion. We're also going to talk a bit about our recruitment strategy. I'll come on to that a little bit later, but I think it's an interesting question of how that develops over the course of the next couple of years. And then we'll kind of close on the friendlies and look forward to Spain. I think the players are heading out today, actually. So, but look, let's get straight into it. So, George, I'll come to you straight away. Mm-hmm. What is your view on Hutchie re-signing on a 1-year deal?
I thought it was a strange one. It was a re-signing, which I was happy to see for sure. But it was a strange one because my initial reaction was, well, if he was at the club last season, why didn't we just offer him a 1-year deal then? But from obviously us maybe looking at it too broadly, I think the offer was on the table for sure. But I think with Hutchinson's age, and he knows that he's going to get limited game time again this season, he obviously looked at his options elsewhere. And in the end, he decided that coming back to the club and staying at Millwall for an extra year was probably best for him. It's a welcome one, I think, for everyone involved. I think the club love it. He's been our club captain for years now. He's the club captain still. And I think it's a dressing room which lacks leaders. It's a very young squad. I think we've got a few older heads in that dressing room, but it's a young squad, and especially with a lot of the youth which we're trying to breed into the first team these days, you need leaders, you need sensible heads and shoulders. So I think Shaun Hutchinson certainly brings that. Of course, he won't. We know full well we won't be playing as much next season. We know that he didn't play much at all last season, which means his minutes are going to be even more limited this season. But when he has come in, Shaun Hutchinson, he still looked quality. He still looked really good. Obviously, he scored a last minute winner at Bristol City last year. I think most importantly from a fan's point of view, looking at it from a fan's point of view now, is that we never actually got to say goodbye. He never got the send off he deserved, other than a post on Twitter. And I think Shaun Hutchinson's a player who's been at the club a very long time. He's been club captain. He's been a fantastic servant. He deserved a good send off. And thankfully now he's got that extra year at the club, and we can give him an even better send off come this time next year.
I couldn't agree more. But before I give my perspective, Joe, what's your view?
A bit like George. I'm happy he's back. I mean, firstly and foremostly, we know that it wasn't his intention to leave. I mean, you and I, Chris, we did the end of season awards together on the table, and we had Hutch on our table, and he was great, wasn't he? I mean, he was very transparent, very open with us, and we were trying our best to get the answers out of him about his contract. You know, are you going to be here next season? And he's been very sort of diplomatic with his answers. But what you can sense from him was he desperately wanted to be here this season, to the point that I think there was one moment when Neil Harris walking behind him saying hello to a table behind us, and he was sort of telling us sort of like keep quiet. He didn't want to spill the beans too much in front of Neil Harris and him sort of cotton on. But you got the impression that basically it was about a contract. It was about make sure that both parties were happy with it. And I can only imagine what Mill offered probably wasn't quite what Hutchie wanted. Hence the reason why he initially sort of maybe turned it down, explored other opportunities like George just said. And maybe once he sort of sat down and he had all his offers on the table, he realised actually what he wanted. Whether he went back to the negotiation table with Millwall again and asked sort of like if they can meet him in the middle, who knows? But whatever's happened, both parties are happy now, and I'm glad to see Hutch back. Will he play much this season? I doubt it. I think he'll be used as a bit of a squad stroke backup player, and it's very, very similar to when Alex Pearce had that 1-year extension with us. And he didn't play many games, but everyone talked about how important he was in the dressing room, how he was a leader. And again, to George's point, we lack leaders in that dressing room. And they're not saying we completely lack leaders. There are a few that don't wear the armband that are very credible, but he's certainly somebody who gets us. He's been at the club, eight seasons now. He's very much an integral part of that changing room. And I'm just glad for all reasons, all purposes, that he's going to be there for another season. And hopefully it will be a positive one and he'll play a big part in that.
Gents, I agree entirely with your assessments. I think for me, it is a positive move. I can understand why certain sections of the fan base look at it and go, oh, we couldn't sign another centre-back, so we just went back to him. I don't look at it like that. I look at it through the same lens that you do. I think, in a time where we have a lot of inconsistency with, changes at the very top of the club, obviously the tragic passing of Matty Sarkic, I think leadership and consistency is important at a time like this. It was clear to see that Neil Harris, just for his article, he said something along the lines as he didn't want to give it closure because he clearly didn't want him to go, right? And I do wonder whether the change of recruitment lead played a part in that. But he is a fantastic character, and I think it just suits all parties. He openly said to us, and I'm sure he doesn't mind us sharing because he was quite open about it, that he's done when he retires. He doesn't want to be a coach or a manager. He's done, right? So another year, what he's used to probably suits him, suits the club. The only thing I would say, he probably will start the first couple of games because Tanganga is suspended. Let's hope he's not injured. So I think that is an interesting one, whether we need to add something else to it. But yeah, overall, I think it's a good bit of business. Even little things, Joe, if you remember, I don't know if you were there at this point at the end of season awards, but one of the players came over with a set of car keys and he went up to Hutch and went, whose car keys are these? I've just found them. And straight away he was like, it's this player. And little things like that where he just knows the dressing room. Like everyone goes to him. He's the focal point. People underestimate how important things like that are. So for me, as long as he's been brought back to play that role and to play 10, 15 games, I'm delighted. But then I guess my next question, and I'll come to you, Joe, is based on Kamal Grant also going on loan to Bromley, which I think is a good move for him. The fact that Chinakoli, he played yesterday. Does that mean he's not travelling with the squad? I don't know. But do you think we need another centre-back and base that on the assumption that Harding does move on?
Yeah, firstly, I think as much as I love Harding and I really hope that he proves me wrong, I don't know whether he's the player we need if we're going to be challenging for a playoff place this season. Don't get me wrong. I think when your back's against the wall and you're having to defend for your lives, I can't see why Harding can't do a job for us. I like him as a person. We got to meet him, and he's really a very really humble, very, very lovely, and you can see why the dressing room really like him as well. So you got him as an option. You got Murray Wallace as an option. Cameron Grant has obviously gone back to Bromley, and I think that's the right move for him. As much as I think he's a unit and he's one for the future, definitely a promising youngster. You just saw glimpses of that inexperience creep in against Gillingham when he made a couple of mistakes, and you were there at the game, weren't you? Yeah. And you just imagine he'll probably get destroyed in the Championship, especially with higher caliber strikers. So another season for Bromley will do him the world of good. So yeah, we've got Tanganga, obviously in Cooper, which would be our preferred partnership. We've got Hutch as a backup. We've got Harding as a backup. And we've got Murray Wallace as a backup. So we've got 3 backup options there. Are those 3 backup options good enough for us to sustain a promotion push? You've got to take Hutch on because obviously he's there for a reason. Murray, I've got the jury's out in the middle of it at the moment. He seems like he's on a bit of a downtrend at the moment. And Akoli again, is it too soon for him? So I think one more experienced defender coming in would make a huge difference for us. But look, if we concentrate a bit more on attacking areas now and don't bring any more centre backs or defenders, just having Tanganga on a perm with Cooper, and we know how consistently good they can be together, we might be all right. But we've got to make sure we add in the areas we need to strengthen at the moment. I don't know whether that's the area that's going to be our priority, because I think with Tanganga, I think we're right at the moment.
Yeah, I agree, and I also think it depends if Harding and Muzza are still at the club. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them moved on. If we want to increase the overall quality of the depth of the squad, maybe we haven't brought any loans in yet. Maybe there's like a young centre back from a Premier League club that, like a Cresswell or something that wouldn't necessarily start because you've got Tanganga and Cooper, but would be like really pushing them as well. So maybe there's that the club will look to do later on. But Joe touched on the priorities. What would your kind of, if you could have had an extra body on the plane to Spain at Rome, who would it be? What's that number one priority for you?
I think we need strengthening all over the pitch, to be honest with you, because I don't think we've got depth. I still think we need a goalkeeper, and I think we need a potential left back. Definitely a centre half if one of, say, Harding leaves or Okoli goes on loan. However, if I'm going to pinpoint one, I really think we need a winger. And I think if you look at over the summer, I think we lost Longman. He was on loan, and it looks like we're not gonna get Longman back now. It looks like he's going to stay at Hull. We had Norton Cuffy, who did a job out there wide as well. However, I think what we lacked last season was a pacey winger, a tricky winger who can get to the byline, who can get crosses in. And although we have options out wide, certainly we've got Romain Eze out there, who's obviously extremely young. He can obviously play in that number 10 as well, which I think he's more suited to. But he's young. He is still young. He's still raw. Same as Amaku as well. I think's had a really good pre-season so far. And then you've got Duncan Watmore, who I personally think's much better off the bench than he is starting. So I think we need a winger who can who's not afraid to take his man on, who's quick, who's skillful, who can get to the byline and he can get crosses in. For the strikers like Langstaff and Bradshaw, who feed off those one-touch finishes, crosses into the box. They're poachers. They feed off service in and around the box. So I think we need a winger as well as strengthening in other positions, because I don't think our depth is particularly good. I don't think so.
George, I agree, because another thing as well is, and I said this on another show, I can't remember which one, but if you just look at just total bodies in the building, we're actually no better off than last season. If anything, we're down, because Longman and Norton Cuffy were here. They've not been replaced so far. Langstaff is a replacement. They're not the same, but for Obafemi, Jensen was Sarkic's replacement. Tanganga was here. Hutch was here. So actually, just to stay still, we need to do more business. So this kind of brings me on to my next question, which is, I don't want to be negative. I think the business we've done so far is very good, and the club should be commended for that. And the fees that we pay to get these boys over the line, I think it's brilliant. But at the moment, based on where we sit here today on the 21st of July, I would have hoped for more, if I'm being really honest. And I do think there's a lot more to do. So how would you both assess the business so far, and where you would have hoped to have been at this stage of the summer going to Spain? Because that's key. This was certainly a line in the sand, right? Because you wanted all the players to be going to Spain, and we are where we are. So, George, I'll come back to you again on that one. What's your view on, I guess, your take on the business so far and where we're at?
Well, I do agree. I would have liked us to make more signings at this point. I think Neil Harris certainly would have liked of us to have a couple more new faces through the door before we went out to Spain. But saying that, I think our business has been good so far. I think we've made smart business. I think we've looked at the squad and listen, as a whole, like I said, I think we lack depth. But there's key positions in that starting 11 which I think need strengthening. And I think he's looked at it and he's gone, right, well, we need a centre-back, so we'll go out and get Tanganga back again, which was probably our priority so far. I think they spent so long trying to get Tanganga back. They haven't actually looked elsewhere yet at other positions because they spent so long just focusing on getting him back. So I think we've gone out and got a centre-back. We've gone out and got a goalkeeper. And then we needed a striker. We needed a goal scorer. We all know we didn't score enough goals last season. So we've gone out. We've got the League Two top goal scorer, the Golden Boot winner, as well as Jensen, who was the Golden Glove winner in League One. So I think we've made smart business so far. I think we've spent money, haven't we? I know Tanganga was a free, but in terms of the wages he's going to be on, and we spent money on Jensen and Langstaff. So I'd like to think that if the funds are there, then we'll spend some more money in positions which need strengthening. But say I would have liked a few more bodies through the door. There's no doubt that there will be a few more bodies. We have to, because we're so light in certain areas. But I'm happy so far. I would say.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, a bit like George. Really, I'm very happy with those signings. For me, the number one sign, which I'm so happy with, probably like the most happiest I've ever been with Millwall sign, is Tanganga, because it's just so unlike Millwall. With respect, George, I mean, you're 20, 21, so I'm a few years older than you, and I've suffered. I've just a few, and I've suffered over the years. George, like the transfers into Millwall have always been, pretty crap. We've been lucky on a few occasions, but we never really kind of pushed out. We never really punched above our weight. We've never gone out there to secure the services of a top caliber player in Tanganga. And you mentioned there about, Langstaff being Golden Boot winner in League Two, Jensen being the Golden Glove in League One, which is fantastic. But when you're looking above, I would personally think that Tanganga is the best centre back outside the Premiership. And there's lots of good Championship centre backs, but for me, I think he just possesses all the qualities and all everything we need. And to get him, it's a 10 out of 10. Bit of transfer business. I'm so happy with that. Obviously, the jury's out on Langstaff. Will he or won't he make it in the Championship? He seems to be very, very confident in himself and his ability to step up and do well. And why should we knock that confidence? I want him to be confident. I want him to sort of approach this positively. I think he can replicate what he's done in low divisions. My only concern with Langstaff is, will he get the chances that he has been getting in previous seasons? And to your point there, George, we do need some attacking wingers. We need players that are going to create and give these opportunities to Langstaff and Bradshaw, wherever it is that's playing, to score these goals. But at the moment, I can't see with this team how we're going to create a style of football that's going to get the best out of Langstaff and create opportunities for him to score goals. So that's my only concern is, we still got a way to go. I mean, the transfer window doesn't end for some time. But we definitely need some wingers, definitely some attacking threat to create those chances. And my biggest concern at the moment is that it's probably in the wide areas.
Joe, you touched on two things there that I want to sort of move forward with. The first one, just to sort of cover, is George may know some of these names I'm about to reel off, but he may not. I don't know. But there are so many times we have signed a player on loan and they've done really well for us, and then they've gone elsewhere. I honestly can't remember the last time we actually went and signed them permanently. So I'm going to name some names. First one's off the top of my head. Darren Huckabee was the first one I remember. He didn't sign for us. We had Jason Punchin, didn't sign for us. Chris Wood didn't sign for us. There's just three examples. Dan Ballard, Charlie Cresswell, like
Harry Kane.
Well,
yeah. What happened to him?
Yeah, I don't know.
What a
He's
loser.
playing for some German team, I think.
Was he? Oh, okay.
But the point is, they were all players that then went on to sign for other clubs in and around our level, right? They weren't hugely beyond our means. And with Tanganga, we went out there and got him, right? And I think that's something, you touched on that, so I really wanted to bring that up. But the other point, and I want to this takes me into kind of the next sort of series of questions, is you touched on around playing style and how you can sign a player that's used to scoring 20, 30 goals a season. But ultimately, if you don't create chances, he ain't going to score nothing, right? Now, in terms of the recruitment strategy for this summer, what do we think the club is actually trying to solve for? Because we can all sit here and go, oh, we should go after that player and we should go after that player. But in reality, it all has to come from a strategy, right? Which is derived from, I suppose now, Gallen. Yeah. So, for example, I would have imagined one of the objectives was to reduce the average age of the squad, right? That would have been one of them. The second one would probably, the squad is very much there it's a Gary Rowett system, right? So we didn't have wingers really. George touched on it earlier. you could argue that none of SA, Watmore and Amaku are natural wingers, really. You could argue that. So we didn't have wingers. So I would imagine that is another objective. But I'm really curious to hear your perspectives on what you think some of the other objectives may have been, you know, and how that may then transpire into the type of players we bring in. And I'll come back to you, Joe, on that to start with.
I mean, like you said there earlier, I think the formation under Rowett was one that was creative a back five. He wasn't necessarily bothered or interested in bringing wingers in. So, yeah, you got George Honeyman had done a job for us there in the past under Harris. Adam Mayer, I think, would have been a good bit of business bringing him in before last season, because I think this season would have been a season where he certainly got more games. And I think under Harris, I think he would have given them opportunity to at least play. But of course, he's injured now. He's going to be out for some time. I think it seems like there's a bit of a mixture at the moment with the transfer policy. It sounds like they're looking lower in the divisions, which is good. They're realizing, for them to compete with, other championship teams, and especially the teams that come down with parachute payments, it's going to be very hard to sort of buy premiership players or even decent championship players. So you've got to take a bit of a gamble and look at the lower leagues. But again, we mentioned earlier, to sort of get the top goal scorer in League Two and to get the best goalkeeper in League One, that's pretty decent bit of business there. Will we look to go abroad again? We've done that a couple of times in the past with Fleming, with Casper Denor, Vogshammer, and
Did you see who we were linked with this morning, Joe?
Was it someone from an Asian sort of league? Was it
South Korea? Yeah,
South Korea. So again, you know what? I like that, because we've had a lot of players come and play at the Den from sort of Asian sort of heritage. And I tell you what, they seem to all be the same. They work very, very hard, very skillful, very, very fit, very quick, very athletic, and they all seem to be very good wingers. And I'd love to get someone like that at Millwall. So again, that could be another option for us. I would imagine securing a service to someone like that ain't going to break the bank balance. We're not going to be spending millions of pounds trying to bring players in. You tend to get them on a decent, transfer for a fee. So the fact we're exploring all possibilities, looking at all different ways of doing it, I think it's good. Hopefully we'll bring a couple more players in, because we certainly need, again, strengthening those areas, especially in the attacking third.
Yeah, and George, you can sort of build on that a little bit. And also, is there anyone that you think, or that you've seen play? I know you've got really good, awareness of the Championship. Is there anyone in particular that you would have your eye on to bring in that is probably within our means to go after them?
Well, I will say, going back to what Joe was saying, it's obviously been a mixture so far in terms of the players we've brought in. It's very hard to pinpoint a certain strategy of what we've gone for. Listen, the club will have, or the recruitment team will have a list. They'll have a spreadsheet of a set of players from numerous leagues in England and abroad, of players which they think sort of fit the mould of players which we need in certain positions. And they'll be looking through them, and they obviously did that with Jensen. They've obviously gone, listen, can he play with his feet? Is he tall? Is he good? Is he commanding? They've gone with Langstaff. What's his goal scoring record like? How many goals does he get in the box? How many doesn't? What's his link-up play like? Etc. So they'll have a list. The recruitment team will have a list of players which will, and I think recently, like we touched on already, I think players we're getting abroad is probably the way to go. If you look at a lot of clubs around us, they're bringing in players from abroad. And they turn out to be really well. I mean, a lot of the players in the Championship these days, if you think of players of the season or players which are in that team of the season, a lot of them are actually foreign. A lot of them aren't English, which shows that going abroad and looking at the transfers market abroad works. And we've done it already. We've signed Fleming, which works out really well. I think Casper Denor is a very good addition for our football club. And so again, going back to your question, sorry, going back to who I think we need. I really like Alfie Gilchrist at Chelsea. I think he's a young centre half who went in at Chelsea towards the back end of the season and did really well. He looks like he's a sensible, mature head on young shoulders. I'd say I don't know about the rest of you boys, but I'd say I'm sure they'll be looking at players we need in certain positions, especially within the same league as us, definitely.
Joe?
Sorry, mate. Just want to add to that point. Just in mainly the areas that we need strengthening. For me, like when you look at our strongest 11 on paper at the moment, who's available, you like to think that we've got Cooper and Tanganga, which is going to be our back two. Yeah, I think Leonard's a bit of a no-brainer right back. He's player of the season for us. I think Casper is a dead cert in the middle. Who partners him? Will it be Saville? Will it be Mitchell when he's fit? Will it be Honeyman? I mean, there's talk about Honeyman moving back into centre midfield again. He has done quite a bit in pre-season. So there's an area there which is a concern. Saville looks really good in pre-season. It sounds like, I think a lot of people mentioned towards the end of last season, has his legs gone a little bit? Is he slowed down a little bit? But I think that break in the summer's done a world of good. He seems to be really energised. He seems to be really fit. He looks sharp. I mean, the goal he scored against, I think, was it Charlton or Reading? I think it's Charlton, wasn't it? In that pre-season friendly. Okay, it's only a friendly, but he just looked sharp. The way he was bombing forward, the way he finished that left foot into the top corner, looked really good. Obviously, you've got Langstaff, which you like to think he's going to start. Fleming, again, he's going to play with being a 10 or up front. The concern, again, is on that right side. I love it if SA can do a job there. I just don't see him naturally doing that job well, but he's still young. He can still mold in that position. But I think a bit like George, I see him more of a 10. And I think the difficult thing there is I think where SA's young, I think he sees himself as a 10 as well. And it's very, very hard for a young player who needs to play with confidence, that needs to feel that he's playing a position that he's going to thrive, to then ask him to do a job in a different position where he's not as comfortable. Now, I'm not saying that he can't do a job there, but you can see whenever he moves into the 10, he just seems to sort of up a gear in his play. My biggest concern is that left side. I think Joe Bryan on his day could be great as left back. I'm concerned about his defensive capabilities and whether he's going to stay fit. And again, on that left side, Amaku looked really good in pre-season, but I don't know whether he's going to be consistently good in that position for us and do what we need him to do, but only time will tell. And I do think we're crying out for a target man. That was the point I'm trying to make here, really. I know it's sort of going in the houses a little bit, but I'm trying to build up from the back to the front. I still think we need a target man. Over the years, Millwall, we've had decent target men. You could look back through our rota of players we've had, and we've all been successful when we had target men. We haven't had a decent target man for quite some time now. I think the last target man we might have had was Matt Smith. And to be fair to Matt, as good as he was in the air, he didn't really do a lot more for us as an overall player, as in sort of, running the channels or getting behind defenders. But we need someone like that that's going to make a difference. So that would be my priority as well, is trying to find a target man that can give us some aerial strength, whether it be in set pieces or just holding the ball up for us. But we definitely need someone like that. I think that's what we're lacking at the moment.
Agree, Joe, and I think this is where I'm back to my point on my assessment of the recruitment so far. I can't give it a resounding, yes, because you've just highlighted between you 4 or 5 areas we still need to strengthen, and we haven't mentioned the goalkeeper. We need another goalkeeper for sure. So, if you look at that and you say, right, we need another goalkeeper, we need ideally probably another centre back. Cover for left back, that could be Adon Malachi, possibly, or Muzz, but ideally I think you would have someone else. With Billy Mitchell out at the start of the season and only having Denor and Sav, I think you need more cover there. You need 1 or 2 wingers, and then you need a front man. So you've got like 5, 6 areas that you still need to do business on, which is why kind of what I was getting at. And I think one of the other things I just wanted to run past you was, is it priority number 1? No. But should it be a priority for the next 2 transfer windows? Yes. And I want to run this past you, and that is a long-term replacement for George Saville. So, love Sav, my favourite player at the club currently. Genuinely, he's such a nice bloke, gives everything for the shirt. You know what you're going to get for him every single week. Should he still be in the team at the minute? From what I've seen, yes. But he is getting older, And as part of our strategy, we need to bring someone in that can be the new Sav for the next 2-3 years to complement Denor. Because in a championship Neil Harris team, we ask a lot of our central midfielders. And I think we need to make sure we've got someone that fits that mould. George, do you agree with that? Do you think that, longer term, we need to be looking at a replacement for Sav?
Yeah, I do agree. I really rate George Saville. I said after the Gillingham game, I thought he was outstanding in the one half he did play. And say, yes, he is, getting on in his early 30s now. And the club obviously have this strategy where once they get into their early 30s, they always offer him a 1-year deal sort of on the side. So he's going to have another year maybe at the football club after this season, which I would love because I think he's a great player and I think he's a leader in the dressing room as well. But certainly, I think we need to replace him. If you look at the centre midfielder options we've got, I think Billy Mitchell is he loves the football club. He's a Millwall fan, and he puts his heart out every single week. But I still feel Bill's a little bit lightweight. No disrespect to him, I think he's a little bit lightweight, and you've got Denor in there as well, who I think's technically out of all of them, I think he's the best. And then you've got Saville, who's sort of just a bit of both. I don't think he's technically as good as Denor, and I don't think he runs about as much as Billy Mitchell. But he's in the middle. He's a leader. He's the voice in that middle of the park. You can always see him. You can always hear him sometimes shouting. I think he's extremely important to the dressing room and for that starting 11 for the way we play. I think he's always got one short up and one short down, and he's always got a load of mud down him. That just shows how much he's run and how much graft he's put in. So for sure, long term wise, we have to look for a replacement for George Saville, and who that be? I couldn't tell you names on the top of my head. I couldn't tell you. But for sure, I think we need a replacement because he's so crucial to everything we're doing.
Thankfully, George, we can just give our opinions. It's not our job to do that. But I think, agree. And I also think when we replace, and by the way, when I say replace Sav, I'm not suggesting we replace him right now. This is a longer term thing. But when we do that, I do think we need to try and solve for the leadership element of both Hutch and Sav at the same time. So we need to bring someone in that not only can play that role, but is that leader. Because I think if you take Hutch and Sav out of that dressing room, that's huge. So we also need to replace for that. Like I know we were after Lewis Travis, last season, someone like that who's been a captain that can play that role. But just segueing slightly, I want to touch on Denor because Denor was sort of in and out the team last season, particularly under Harris. I think we could all understand why he did that. But personally, for me, Denor has a real touch of class about him. The stats don't lie. He's the player that played the most forward passes. I don't know. Was it chances created or forward passes into the opposition half?
It was forward passes, wasn't it?
And he didn't even play half the games. So, that says a lot. I'm going to go out on a whim and say a bold statement here that we do need to build our midfield around Denor. Mm-hmm. Joe, what's your feeling on that? And any final thoughts on Mr. Saville?
I think Denor frustratingly was left out, as you say, last season for a reason. It was kind of needs must. We were having to fight in the trenches, and it's about survival. And Harris identified who he wanted in his team that's going to fight and battle for us to get out of the problem we were in. Now, don't get me wrong, Kasper will fight and he'll do what he needs to do, but he's more about playing on the ball and being creative, as you say, put forward passes in. And I think there's players in that squad that are more suited to perhaps not having the ball, which we knew that would be the case. And that's why we wanted players in there that are going to defend, work hard, and grind out results, which we did. And that was the reason why we stayed up. One thing for me is that I agree with you. I think Kasper needs to start this season. We started, on 0 points now. We're safe. So let's play on the front foot. Let's play expansive football. I think there's no one better, in the club in midfield that can do what Kasper does and getting on the ball, playing forward passes and keeping things tick along. One thing I would say about Sav is that and again, back to George's point, how important it is to keep him or have a player like him in that team. Lots of players mentioned to, I know for one, Casper enjoys playing with Sav. Yeah, I think a lot of players seem to feel his presence in the team, whether that be, physically, mentally, verbally. He does something to that team. When he's playing, the team seem to play a bit better. And I think he breathes a bit of confidence to the rest of the team. You need someone like him who is going to sort of like put a foot in when he needs to, go head to head with an opposition player and tell him who's who in times when things are tough, And I mean, if we can get another season out of him, whether it be a bit part where we play now and again, I don't know how fit he'll be for this season, but he's going to be quite important for us this season if we keep him fit and keep him energized. Otherwise, I think we do need to replace him with someone with a better quality who could play consistently for 46 games. Because, as George said, Mitchell's good, but perhaps a little bit lightweight in certain areas. But he's still young, he's still developing, still getting better. Can Honeyman be that player? Can he sort of do the job in midfield? Probably can. I mean, he's got a tackle in him, he's got lots of energy. Yeah, could him and Casper do a job in the middle of the park? Yeah, only time will tell. But I just think that what Sav brings to this team is more than just playing on the ball. I think he does a lot for the whole team, and mentally, I think he's a big part of what we do.
Yeah, he's a huge character above all, and this is what I mean. I think sometimes as fans we can look at people's contributions on the pitch, like Hutch, and be like, oh well, he only played 12 games last season, But you've got to look beyond that. It really isn't as black and white, is it?
And can I just say as well how good he is on the younger players? Again, just using the annual awards as a bit of a example of this. I mean, the youngsters, there was there was a essay. You had Imaku and you had Broughton and Cuffy. Yeah, and they're all getting on quite well, and they're all sort of chilled out, and none of them were drinking, by the way. At one point, I remember someone asking Essay, "Did you have a drink?" And he's like, "No, I didn't have a drink." Like, he took really offense to it when all the rest of the Millwall team were drinking that at the time, and they were winding him up. But you can see how dedicated these youngsters were. And Sav was like watching them and said to him, "You've been drinking?" And he's like, No. And Imaka was winding, Essay up, saying, "Yeah, he's had a bit of a drink. It's fine." And he's like, "No, I didn't." But Sav was watching the youngsters, and even though Sav was having a good time, and a few of the other older boys were having a good time in that room, you can see that every now and again Sav was checking on the youngsters, seeing what they're doing, what they're up to, and just having someone with experience. You can see that he's also a lead, doesn't he? An armband on his arm. He just made. You can see what he does to that dressing room and how the youngsters really respect him, look up to him as well.
And I do think with Sav, the fans see it because he's been in the top 3 the last 2 years for player of the season, right? Personally, I think he should have definitely won. Not last season, but the season before. But anyway, so I think people see it with Sav, but it's so vital for the camaraderie. Just to plug the Stephen Morrison interview that went out, he was talking about just how important things like that are. Just dressing romantics, having fun, and the Thursday clubs, all stuff like that is really, really important. Before we go on to the sort of the final section of the show, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say, if you're listening to this, please do like, share, subscribe, and all that kind of good stuff. We're currently at around 631 subscribers, I believe. The golden target is 1,000. Again, the 1,000 is purely so that we can start to make money. You can't basically through YouTube, you don't make money any other way than through adverts, and you can't put adverts on until you have 1,000 subscribers. And again, every penny we do make will be going to Cancer Research UK. So if nothing else, if you haven't enjoyed the show, do subscribe still, because you know that you're doing it for a good cause. So please take a second to do that. But gents, I think it's a nice way to sort of round up this show by talking about Spain and the friendlies, and what's still to come. So, yeah, I'm gutted personally that I can't travel out to Spain. Work commitments mean I'm not able to do that. But, George, how important is it for the players to go out to Spain, and Obviously, there's all of the conditioning work that they'll do, but how important is it to go out to Spain, and also for some of the youngsters to be integrated into the group? We've seen some really good stuff from Alfie Massey so far. Like, he's just an example, but yeah, would love to hear your view on that.
Yeah, I think it's really important that the players go out there and they do some warm weather training. I mean, I wouldn't say it's warm in the UK, but it's all right. The weather's all right. But Spain's a different level, isn't it, out there in Alicante? So I think it's important that they get some warm weather training in them, and by doing that, by having that camp for however long it is, I think it's about 5 to 6 days, maybe 7 days, maybe. It obviously gives a great chance to integrate the youngsters. They're all out there, they're all in one camp, they're all staying in one hotel. I'm sure they're all going out to eat to the same restaurants together and eating similar or the same foods. And just by doing that, it helps build relationships. So you've got the likes of Alfie Massey, who I thought did really well. Who else? Carl Smith, Shamal Lawson. All these players can get integrated around the likes of George Saville, Shaun Hutchinson, Jake Cooper. And then their personalities can grow and their confidences can grow. And then once the confidence grows off the pitch, I think you'll then see better players on the pitch. So then I think it's really important that these camps every pre-season once a year happen. And obviously, of course, fitness-wise on the pitch, you're playing games and you're training in much hotter conditions than you would in England. And obviously better facilities, etc. So I think it's really good. I also think it's a huge positive that fans are finally allowed to go out abroad, finally get to watch their team. Because I'm young, but this has never actually happened in my lifetime, really. I don't know if you can remember the last time this ever happened, where the fans got to go out and see the team play abroad in pre-season. It's certainly never happened. It's certainly never happened. All the games abroad have always been behind closed doors. They've been live streamed at most. So I think it's brilliant the fact that fans are finally allowed to go out there. I believe there's about 400, maybe closer to 500 fans going out there. Unfortunately, I won't be one. Same with Chris. I've got work commitments, which is gutting because I would have loved to go out there. But I think it's brilliant, and obviously I'm not sure how it works in terms of the revenue, but I'm sure the club are earning a little bit more off the fans going out there and supporting the team. So yeah, I think it's a really good move from the club. I think it's a positive, and I think if the fans go out there and they show themselves in a positive light, and I think the club say, listen, that was really good that the fans went out there, they supported the team, there was no trouble. I think that will then encourage them to do it next year and the year after that and the year after that. Yeah. So it's an experiment from the football club. But I think it's a positive change. I think it's a really positive change.
Spot on, Joe. Absolutely nailed it. I think there's so many good points you raised there, from the integration of the young lads to, it just being good for the fans. I'm personally gutted. I can't go. Echo your thoughts there, George. Joe, are you going?
I am. So, I'm sorry to say to you two. I feel really bad mentioning it now, but I was going to mention it in a very kind of more excited sort of tone. But I feel bad for you now, so I'm sort of like bring it down a couple of notches. But I'm fucking going. I can't believe it. It's fucking brilliant. No, I'm really excited about it. And just to echo what George said there, completely agree, George. Everything you said there, I think, fitness-wise, amazing. I mean, the humidity and the heat out there is going to make the players work really hard. They're really going to work their lungs. I mean, I as you know, Chris, I play for a vets team, local vets team where I am. And we
over 50s.
Over 40s. I know every year we do a tour, it'd be like Portugal or whatever. This year was Spain, and I played out there and it was about 27, 28 degrees, and fuck me, it was hot. I mean, there's talk about it being 40 at the moment in Alicante. But the fixtures, I think the Forest game on Tuesdays in the evening and the one against Murcia, I think it's on a Friday morning. So you're hoping it ain't going to be as hot, but you're looking at 30 plus easily still, So what it's going to do for the fitness levels of these boys is going to be superb. It's going to be really helpful. So when they come back to England again and finish off the pre-season, they're going to be fit, and we haven't had that for a good few years now. So we've always seemed to sort of start quite slowly as well. You look at the way we start, our games, we always look a little bit unfit. We need a few weeks before we kind of get into the feel of it. And I'm expecting us to kind of fly out the traps quite fast when pre-season comes, as long as we stay fit and don't get injured, of course. So that is a massive thing for us. I'm really pleased the club have done that, and of course let the fans go and watch them, which I'm so excited about. It just adds to it all. I'm really sort of happy. The youngsters, just mentions there about Alfie Massey. I mean, how great does he look? I mean, he was only playing for under 18s, I think, last season, and now he's breaking to the under 21s. I mean, Jesus Christ, watching the way he's been playing, I can't see how he could be playing in the first team, let alone the under 21s. I think he could bypass that bit. We look at other players that come through. So
signed a new contract, hasn't he, as well, which is good. A lot of the lads that George mentioned have as well, which is fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at a few of the players that have been let go, like Abdul Malik and a couple of others. I mean, these players were kind of like touching 21 years of age, and you like to think, well, if they can't make it into the first team by that age, they're sadly not good enough. And they're good players, but probably not where they need to be for the championship. So when you look at the youngsters like, Chinakoli, Tom Leahy, Massey, I don't know if I'm missing anyone else out, George, but, Shamar Lawson, who I think is absolute quality. One thing about Shamar Lawson, just to end off very quickly as well, that he's only been at Millwall for a couple of seasons. And he's only, I think he's 18 or 19, I can't remember now, but he was playing men's football in non-league at the age of like 16, 17 years of age. So he didn't actually come through the academy level like a lot of these players have done, like Broughton Norton Cuffy and a few others. So he was playing men's football. And trust me, like, as you know, I play vets football. It's physical. It's quite tough. And to be 16, 17 years of age playing against 28, 30, 32-year-old men who are physically strong and to compete with them, he had done really well. He got spotted and brought into the Millwall youth system. So if you haven't seen Shamar Lawson play yet, when you do watch him play, look out for him. He's one to watch because he's a tough tackling midfielder. He's very energetic. He's box to box, all action. And I think he's one who, I'm not saying he'll break through to the first team this season, but we might see glimpses of him coming through. So I'm quite excited about him as well. So some real exciting talent out there, and I just looking forward to going out there to Spain and watching the guys play, and looking forward to a good week.
Agree, and I'm so jealous. I'm not going to lie. Like you're out there, I'm just seeing pictures of them cold frosted beers. I can see George frothing at the mouth for one of these as well already. So,
if it helps, Chris, I'll send you some pictures while I'm out there. And,
that would help tremendously.
Thanks, just so you could be out there with me as well.
Well, I think that's probably a nice way to sort of close out the show. Real sort of optimistic view of what's to come, and hopefully one or two more transfer bits of business will be done whilst the players are out there. So thank you, gents. I'm going to come to both of you just for sort of final thoughts before we close out. But George, I think you coming on the first time, I think you've been fantastic. So would just want to recognise that, and would love to have you back on. But could you share with the listeners, other than at any bar that sells a Asahi on tap, where can they find you?
So you can find me in your local spoons. No, you can't. Sorry. You can find me on TikTok at george.c9, or you can find me on Twitter or X at georgemfc1. Obviously, I use Twitter on the side, but TikTok is the main platform you'll find me on. Creating more Millwall content, of course, giving my opinion. So yeah, that's where you can find me, and if you make sure you drop a follow, etc. Because the page is growing. Recently just hit 1,000 followers. Sorry.
Well done, mate.
Likes are going up, and tell you this, it's really enjoyable what's going on there. Obviously, it's a target audience for everything, and it's a platform which no Millwall fans are yet to really explore. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the journey, and if you like what you're hearing, then stick around and drop us a follow.
You make some really good content, guys. So make sure you do go and check that out. He's gonna surpass Chat with Chaps very, very quickly, I'm sure. And then Joe, mate, just thank you for coming on. Bet you're absolutely buzzing to get out to Spain. But any final thoughts from you, mate?
I am, just to echo what you said. Thanks, George, for coming on. you speak really well, and you definitely got the old adage, an old head on young shoulders. You speak sense. Watched your TikTok videos and love what you talk about. You mentioned before you are opinionated, but I think that's a good thing. You give your opinions on everything. And just to add what you said, George, is Millwall accounts on TikTok that sort of show videos and make little videos of like goals, celebration, or whatever. But what you do, you talk about Millwall and you analyze, games and talk about players and transfers. And it's very good. So again, just in case the audience missed it, can you give us that TikTok name again so we can remember it?
Yeah, of course. It's at George C.9. So at George C.9.
We'll whack it in the when we put this show out. We'll put it in the thing as well. So all good.
Definitely.
Good.
But
Lovely.
yeah, definitely get following him, guys, because if you like TikTok, I like TikTok. He does put some good content on there. And just I really enjoyed today's show. Always enjoy doing shows with you, chaps. You know that, and it's just nice to sort of talk about the positive stuff that's going on with our club at the moment. Although there's not a lot to talk about, what we have discussed today is all good stuff. We're not talking about anything negative. It's all moving forward. We all talk about the transfers, going to Spain. It's all good stuff, isn't it? All quite exciting. So I'm looking forward to what pre-season the season gives us, and I'm sure we'll talk about some more stuff in the coming weeks.
Room for optimism for sure. Great stuff, gents. Well, thank you. We'll close out there. Thank you very much, listeners, for giving us an hour of your time today, wherever you are.
And make sure you subscribe, guys. I'm going to keep adding on to that as well. You've got to do it. You've got to help this channel out, guys, because, like I said, if you help the channel, we can monetize some things. We can put some more money into charity, and that's the aim. Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. I'm conscious at times I might be saying it too much, but it's all for good reason. So, no, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful week wherever you are. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.
Sports Social Podcast Network.